Okay, let's get started. Two mechanics worked on a car. The first mechanic, so let's see, we have information about the first mechanic, charges $45 per hour. Keep in mind that this is a rate. And then we have the second mechanic, so information about the second mechanic, and they're charging $75 per hour. Again, another rate. Then it says the mechanics worked for a combined total, so this is combined, so together, combined total of 15 hours they worked, so worked combined total of 15 hours. Together they charged a total of $825. So together they charged a total of $825. So together. So that's all I know, and they want us to figure out how long did each mechanic work. That's the unknown. How long did each mechanic work? So I'm going to make a little note that that's what we want to find. And the unknown, keep in mind, the unknown is going to represent your variables in your problem. So each mechanic, so since we have two mechanics, I'm going to let X be mechanic 1. And then I'm going to let Y, the variable Y, represent mechanic 2. And notice that it says how long did each mechanic work. Therefore, it's not going to be just mechanic 1, it's the hours worked. So this is hours worked. Same thing for the other one, hours worked. Now that we know these are unknowns, we're going to need to create some equations here. So I'm going to do this. So I'm going to say equation 1 and equation 2. I'm going to create two equations. So for equation number 1, I'm going to start off with the first sentence or the second sentence where it says the first mechanic charged 45 per hour, second mechanic charged 75 per hour. So I do know that the first mechanic and then the second mechanic, we know they charge something. And then notice that in the second sentence or in the third sentence it says the mechanics worked combined total of 15 hours. But I'm going to look at this piece here. Together they charged a total of $825. So together, so if I add the first mechanic plus the second mechanic, whatever they charged was $825. And in equation 2, they also told us that the mechanics worked a combined total of 15 hours. So the first mechanic and the second mechanic together, a combined total of 15 hours. Make these equations a little bit more specific now. So what's going to represent the first and the second mechanic? So for equation 1, we're talking about what they charged. To figure out what someone charges, you have to know the rate per hour, which we already know. The first mechanic charged 45 per hour. So I'm going to write that down. The first mechanic, the hours worked. So again, you need to know the rate. So I'm going to put a little note here. The rate times the hours. So the rate was $45 times the hours. We don't know how many hours mechanic 1 worked. But we do know that is represented by this here, X. X is mechanic 1's hours worked. So I have to multiply that with X in this case because we don't know how many hours he worked or she. Next, I'm going to do the information for the second mechanic. So again, it's the same thing. You take the rate times the hours and that'll tell you how much they charged. So we do know that they charged $75 per hour for the rate, and you have to multiply it with the number of hours they worked. And we don't know how many hours they worked. We just know that it's represented by Y. We're trying to figure that out. So I'm going to put the variable Y, and we already know that combined they charge $825. Next, equation 2, we're talking about the actual hours that they worked. So how many hours to combined? We know they worked 15 hours together. So for the first mechanic, how many hours did they work? We know mechanic 1, the hours worked, we don't know. So it's represented by X. So the hours worked for mechanic 1 plus, same idea for mechanic 2, it's represented by Y. Y is how many hours mechanic 2 worked. And when we add those two hours together, the hours that they both work combined is 15. And there you go. You have your system of equations. You can actually use elimination method to solve this out now. And if I wanted to clean it up a little bit more, I could bring it down here and I could say that basically I have 45x plus 75y equals 825. And then we have x plus y equals 15. And then that's the system that I can use to solve. So we're not going to solve it, but again, the setup is the key part. Once you set it up, then you can use elimination method to solve it out.